Welcome to Voice Rising with Kara Johnstad. Enjoy weekly conversations with leading luminaries, pioneering visionaries, singers, poets, musicians, and sound healers as we explore the profound role our voice plays on the path to self-realization and global enlightenment. The internationally acclaimed singer, composer, author, healer, recording artist, voice expert, creator of Voice Your Essence, and founder of the School of Voice, Kara Johnstad uses her extraordinary spiritual gifts to empower others. Everything in this world vibrates. Everything has a frequency. A pioneer in the field of voice work and transformational songwriting. Her breakthrough methods are helping thousands of people worldwide fine-tune their body-mind-spirit system and unlock the energetic frequencies of limitless creativity, health, and abundance. Share your voice, ask your questions, join in the conversation. Receive life-changing, positive transformation and rise together to create a sound world. And here's your host, Kara Johnstad.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kara Johnstad, and welcome to Voice Rising, where each week we dive into the big questions on how we, as a humanity, can fine-tune our body, mind, spirit system and heal through sound consciousness. And there's nobody better to traverse the inner landscapes of voice and explore with us these bigger questions of meaning than the Grammy award-winning mezzo-soprano Sasha Cooke, sought after by the world-leading orchestras, opera companies, and chamber music ensembles for her versatile repertoire and commitment to new music. Some of the highlights of her career have included the world premieres of operas by Mark Adamo, Mason Bates, William Bolcom, Laura Kaminsky, Nico Muhly, John Musto, and Jovi Talbot. So welcome, Sasha, and I'm very honored to have you with me today at Voice Rising.
Thanks, Cora. I'm honored.
So let's start off this conversation in a very easy place before we deepen into anything bigger. I want to ask you what was one of the strongest memories that you had as a kid with music? Is it something that came very naturally, or were you surrounded by music, or did you have to go chase it and grab it by its tail? My goodness.
That's a great question. Well, I grew up sort of in a house of music, even though my parents aren't musicians. They are great lovers of music. So while I was in the womb and trying to fall asleep at night, my dad was blasting classical music in the house. And so soon I was going to opera and ballet, when I was 4 and 5. And then I started piano. And I would say some of my most profound experiences happened in choral atmospheres. My most favorite thing growing up was African choral music. I had some as you were asking your question, the first image came to mind of kind of breaking down in tears a couple times in those sort of pieces. And then opera kind of was a surprise. I never imagined I'd be an opera singer, but I do recall thinking it was this phenomenal Herculean thing, these big people making this big sound. And I loved sitting behind the conductor's head. So I was always, especially at the Austin Lyric Opera, I grew up going there. In Houston Grand, I went often, and I just had this vision of seeing them and their voices floating over everyone's heads. And so that's a little bit of what I love about what I appreciate about my story is that I wasn't a competitive person. It was just out of pure joy. And my parents were incredibly supportive. I'm so lucky. I think it's impossible it's very difficult to have a career in music without the strong love from people you care about and support, and those that say, we believe in you, we're behind you. So I was very fortunate to have that. So then, for me, it felt like the red carpet rolled out, from institution to program to teacher to place, and it just happened in a organic way that I feel, I don't know, I look back on it and I know we'll talk about these things, but I pinch myself all the time.
Yeah, because it's true that many of us think about the classical world or the music industry itself being very competitive, and so to have it just as if you're being naturally guided, as if it's a beautiful river that's just winding through your life, right? I mean, as if everything should be as it is, and that's how it came to be. It seems like you were basically put here on earth to do what you're doing. And so I guess we are on the path to find work that makes us sing. That's what everybody does desire, and you found it.
Yeah, I feel that way.
You don't have to look anymore. I mean, you get to relax because you found it. And so you don't remember a turning point. I mean, between all the schools, I know you were also at Juilliard, all the auditions, you don't remember a turning point where you said, okay, yes, I'm going to dedicate my life to singing, because it's a big it is a big commitment. It's a very, I think a lot of people don't realize what kind of commitment it is, and that's why I would like to talk to you a little bit about the inner landscapes of voice. It's a 24/7 commitment. So was there a turning point where you said, okay, I'm going to take that vow, I'm going to commit 24/7 to the path of singing and being a singer?
Well, I mean, I think there are many, and I remember once early on, maybe because the way my career sort of started was with a lot of concert work and contemporary music. It's always been a big part of my life, and I recall being on stage with 3 other soloists, and it's the typical configuration, and I looked out in the audience and I saw this young face looking back at me. He must have been maybe 10, and I thought to myself, well, maybe he relates to me, because I'm, I feel like I was just 10 years old. I was hardly 21. And I remember thinking, maybe I can inspire young people to feel comfortable in this art form and at home, and that they too possibly could pursue it, and I just remember we had this little connection, looking at each other and smiling at each other. And I say all this too because I knew I was the youngest person, at least in the soloist group, and I thought that I just still feel very connected to that student side, and I feel very connected to teaching, and I've just, something has awoken in me when I do work in masterclass settings. So I have those little moments too as I go on my path when I work with people, and I think, ooh, I care a lot about this, and sharing it and not hiding anything and getting down deep and talking about people's personal stuff and their technical stuff and just going at it. And but then professionally, there's just so many, profound experiences. It's really hard to pick one, but I feel like if you're a singer, you have constant tests of your spirit, or what should I say, moments that are challenging, where you have to check in with what you're doing, what it's about, how you're balancing it all. For me, being a human being has been a learning experience, because I meet my limitations, in this career, in this life, because you're really on your own, you're out there defining your own circumstances every day. I know you know this so well. So you have to have a really strong core, strong discipline. I really believe in the gut. I heard that early on, that a very famous person in the profession said that for him, that which defines a person who has success has a really keen sense of their gut and what their gut is saying, because you're always being told 100 things. Do this, do that, sing this, sing that, you should be here, you should look like this, you should look like that. And you have to check in, and that's what we all want in an audience. We want to see an artist and just feel taken away,
Right.
So I'm probably veering in all kinds of directions, but I think I have those moments all the time, little reminders that I'm in the right place, because there are transformative things happening all the time, powerful, moving experiences all the time. I've felt out of my body sometimes, so lucky that I can't believe I'm in a certain space. And I think becoming a parent has been a huge thing for me, because it's clarified my vision of what it is to be a musician. It's empowered me in a way. And I feel both are very similar, in the generosity that's required, the openness, the in-the-momentness of being a singer. So I think about that a lot.
I mean, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, just simply, that's actually what I had written here. This thing about taking a singer's vow, and actually what you're saying is this connection that, of course, a singer, our instrument is our body, is our emotion, is our mind, is our spirit, and is our community. It is the world. And that's what's so fascinating for me about the voice, is that the voice is not always, it's not only keeping us in balance and finely tuned 24/7, but we realize the more we work with voice, the more responsibility we have that it can tune the room, right? It can tune your family. The tone that you set, that we set with each other, actually is shape-shifting every single moment that we're creating, which is mind-blowing. I mean, it's just simply mind-blowing. And also every, that's what you're saying about following the gut, following the gut instinct. I think what many people don't realize is that every meal that we take in, every conversation that we absorb becomes the voice. Every city that we choose to work in with a lot of smog or with clean air, it does affect your performance level and your voice. And that's why for me, it's become what I would say is a spiritual path. It's a path of great awareness, of really tuning in to, what does my body need? What is the awareness to breath, the awareness to emotion, the awareness to all of these things that we're longing for, a world full of kindness, full of gratitude, full of gratefulness. Gratitude, gratefulness was the same. The same world there. And
I know.
For me, it's just a blessing to hear somebody, which I've seen you perform. I've seen you, and I've also had the pleasure to have lunch with you. Just the naturalness of saying, this is actually a very natural thing, is to tune into our singing voice, and whether it takes you up to that Grammy Award level, or if it takes you just to the school choir level, or if it takes you to singing and whistling in the kitchen while making a soup, but we are all born singers, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and you talked about some things that drive me crazy, because singing does keep you humble and it keeps you honest. It's a reflection of where you are. So it's very hard to separate your heart from your voice. I mean, some performances, if I'm not as available as I would like to be, I can feel it. I can feel that something's guarded, and of course there's illness and, like you said, atmosphere and environment and those things that play a role. But I love that the voice, unlike other instruments, because a violinist or a pianist can feel, I shouldn't say this because the way they feel in life does come through in their art making, but their health isn't as much a concern, in a crucial way where you can't make sound. And of course it drives a singer crazy, but it's also this, like you said, great responsibility to take care of yourself, to slow down, to be where you are and not. I remember a voice teacher saying to me, sometimes I think you just get ahead of your voice and you expect it to do whatever you want. Well, you don't want to wake up one morning and you're down the road and you left your voice back a ways back. I thought, be with your voice, be with your instrument. And that was a kind of a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah, as if which it is. For me, it's the same. It's the voice as our best friend in a way. It's guiding us. It's telling us. It's helping us to make decisions and to listen in, right? It's very magical. It's true. A pianist can buy the grand piano, but we have to build our voice. And it's not that we just build it in those first years of training. We're building it every single day. We're like a top athlete. We need to, or like a yogi on the mat, we have to show up every day.
Yeah.
And not only do the scales, but like you said, do that work of, where's our emotional landscape at? Where are the tensions, or where's the conflict? How do I express it? How can I stay honest? How can I be truthful with what is? Can I relax with what is, even if it might be grief or major loss, or right? And these are really difficult moments to go into a big song. Everybody knows that when we go into grief, often our throat is tightening, and you are actually not only having to deal with your own stories of people getting married or going to a funeral, or these are normal things, and be on stage, but you're also performing roles of characters that are experiencing trauma or grief or bliss or joy, right?
And you have to keep it together. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about them feeling something, not you feeling something. And that was hard for me. I used to cry all the time. The minute I would get in front of an audience, I would sing, but often I would start crying while singing. And now, luckily, I've kind of gotten over that. But it was about finding that line, you know, where's the line, and looking at it, seeing it, knowing it, you know. It's a wonderful, I think there are so many life lessons in singing. Amy sort of talked about this, and being a classical singer, I don't know what it's like in other fields, but in classical music, it can be very lonely. You know, you're really isolated in a hotel room without anyone you love or anything you know, and you have this schedule given to you, and you show up, and sometimes you don't even interact with a lot of people. You know, you're with 100 players in the orchestra, but maybe you talk to 2, you know, and then you go home and you get a meal and you eat by yourself, and you know what I mean? It's just very isolating. But that, I think, awakens this, you know, sense of self, and you have to say, okay, well, what's my outlook on today? And that's why, for me, gratitude is huge, finding things to also even appreciate in the moment. And I really believe audiences and people sense that. They sense what you think. And I tell students this. I said, because we're human beings, we're flesh instruments, so our flesh are, you know, cells, our blood, our being. So we can't hide, you know, what we feel, and we can't hide our faces. So when you are looking at, I mean, some instruments don't have to look at the audience with the same sort of contact. And so if you're thinking about something, we feel it. And so you have to be the steward of what goes into your noggin. You know, are you thinking about your laundry? Are you thinking about your ah vowel or your dress, or who's in the audience? Or are you with the moment? Are you in the moment with, you know, giving, the act of giving, which I think is really gratitude centric. You know, it's about thank you for being here. Thank you for the gift of music. Thank you for opening up to me. Thank you for, you know, the gift of having this voice and being able to share it and have this moment together. You know, I think, and that's like a lesson for being human. It's like, why else are we on earth other than to be together, you know, to learn from one another. And I think music is a magnified example of that.
Beautiful words from Sasha Cooke. We're going to take a station break and be back in a couple of minutes. Thanks so much.
Okay.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at OMTimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living, a chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
With happy clients all over the world, Cara Johnstad knows that your voice is the missing link to more authenticity, abundance, creativity, and health. An internationally acclaimed voice expert, Cara's breakthrough methods have helped thousands of people successfully heal their voice wounds and extinguish the story of self-doubt and shyness forever. Join in group trainings, attend online sessions, schedule one-on-one time, and invite Cara to work with your organization and community. Get started today. Go to www.carajohnstad.com and receive a special guided meditation designed to fine-tune your inner voice and welcome you on the voice journey.
Hi, this is recording artist and composer Yuval Ran, inviting you to a voyage through the chakras, a new double album of guided meditations to transform your life, a sublime musical medicine for nourishing inner peace and reaching to your higher virtues. Get it now at metamindfulnessmusic.com, METTA mindfulnessmusic.com.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off at school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
So we are back in studio with the Grammy Award-winning mezzo-soprano Sasha Cooke, and we were talking about, basically, in essence, vulnerability. We were talking about what it's like to have a lot of time being alone and at the same time walking into big rehearsals or out on stage and not actually having a lot of contact with other people before you get on that stage. And so I would like to dive into this topic with you, Sasha. So the newest studies show that it's actually our inability to be vulnerable that makes us weak. And we know, and you especially know as a singer and a top performer, the emotional exposure and that risk that you need to give to make that performance touch an audience. You were talking before the break also about our instrument is not metal or wood. We have cells. It's the only instrument connected to the bloodstream. So, of course, other musicians, they have emotions when they play, but our emotions have a direct effect on our tone, as does the temperature of the air, of everything, right? And so what happens as a singer often is that if we don't feel safe, to be able to be vulnerable, we need to feel safe. And if we don't feel safe, the voice actually has difficulty working well, right? And then we have these whole things that happen in our throat, the freeze up, or to flee, or to run away, or to fight it. And this is really rugged terrain, especially in the beginning, I think, for us all to cross, is how can I be open? How can I bare my soul? How can I be vulnerable and strong at the same time with that core strength that you were talking about? And so how do you resolve that conflict as a singer of stepping into the lights? Maybe you have not met anybody in the orchestra pit. You might not even know who's on stage with you. You open up fully, knowing also that there might be critics in that audience. Also lovely people, of course. But how is that for you, the vulnerability aspect and that seeing that as a strength?
Well, in this moment, I feel that we hit on something that resonates with this question, which is the responsibility of the moment and the gift of music. So I'm very aware of those two things in the act of feeling vulnerable. So because I've been given this honor to be in this space, on this stage, as so many hundreds would love to be, and many who do have a voice and many who don't have a classical trained voice would love to be here. So I appreciate that gift, that I'm lucky, and I'm not going to mess it up. I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity, and I'm going to bring all of myself. Why wouldn't I? So, and then I do feel it's kind of a spiritual thing, that when I'm connected to the divine, that I feel free. If I'm intellectual, if I'm in my ego, if I'm in my, the tedium of that moment, then I'm not connected and I can't be generous, and I'm not in the same open space. So that idea, the idea of spirituality is very gratitude driven for me. And I know I've always thought of this, and maybe it doesn't make any sense, but I was, I had a wonderful childhood, but I also was picked on a lot. I was really made fun of, and I did have a fear of people. And, if I had so many memories of walking down a street, and if there was laughter, I assumed it was about me because I was heavier, and I was picked on for being chubby. And I feel like singing, well, first of all, singing, of course, number one, is about the instrument, is about the voice. It's not about what you look like. And as much as we're moving into an HD culture of being this perfectly packaged thing, that's not how it started. It was about your gift. So I think I felt safe, honestly. I felt safe in music always. I remember as a pianist, as a studying piano player, I felt safe in that little room with my piano where I couldn't be criticized. And yet, when I did get in front of people, they allowed me that audience. And I remember feeling so liberated by that I'm in the context of a public sphere, and yet I'm welcome. And no one's calling me a name. And even better, they're rejoicing in what I'm doing. And so singing was an extension of that and just continued to be, and I think, like you said, in the audience, we are, in awe of someone on stage in the act of being vulnerable, showing all of themselves, taking risks. And I think singing in itself, in a very fundamental way, is taking a risk, because you have to be free enough to let loose, to let your instrument vibrate together. And just the act of making music is vulnerable, in a sense. So I think we all, and then of course there's taking chances and singing a super soft note or a high note, or saying a phrase in a very expressive way, surprising yourself and surprising everyone in the room. So I think that's so liberating, that experience of being free in front of people, and them being open to that, the silence around it, where people are just there with you and they're not calling you anything. They're not putting any analysis into it. It is a, what's the word? So it's spiritual. It's a very human, but it's a spiritual experience that we're sharing. I mean, a lot of people talk about, is classical music going to survive and all this stuff. Of course, classical music is doing very well, but people still ask that question, and opera particularly. And so I have to think about this just out of necessity, but also because it is my guide, that experience of being in the room, not on a phone, not watching a YouTube clip of it, but being in the room with another human, sharing their instrument and their soul with you, will forever be intimate and inspiring,
Yeah, I agree with you. And also, the world is made up of all these stories, and the world of opera or classical music, they really have taken it to the highest heights, I would say, of making these amazingly, I would say sometimes simple, maybe complex love stories, but with the arias and the music and the orchestra, it's just at the highest level possible, right? I mean, not that it's better or worse than your mom reading you a bedtime story, but like you said, that just being in a room together with hundreds of people, breathing in rhythm, tone, all the lights, the costumes, it's like you're inside that story, and people opening on that human level. I think also that opera will not die out. It might even make a huge comeback. I don't know where where we are in the opera world. But in Berlin, luckily, we have, I believe, 3 opera houses, right?
Yes.
We have the, Komische Oper, but we also have Staatsoper, Deutsche Oper, and many, many people that go to the opera, right? And I was really taken, I mean, with my own journey of, I had cross-eyed eyes when I was a kid and still do sometimes, my wandering eye and chubbiness and all that stuff. It's true. I never thought about it, and I thank you for bringing that up, but that when we are doing music, people are not looking at least not in our school years. I think in the pop industry, or when you get into auditions and all this kind of stuff, then there's the next, the critics there, or what they're looking for, a certain role. I of course, have to always smile. I always got asked to do the character actresses, right? I never was like the princess. I wasn't the princess, and I was like having to chew on that for a while. I wasn't the lovely princess. I was always like the witch or something. But that being said, the beauty of us focusing on the music that's happening, the story that's happening, and being able to be applauded and appreciated and raised up for being the voice that carries that story, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Wow. Yeah. So what do you do? I have a curious question. So we're also talking a lot about staying in that place of gratitude and staying in that place of oneness. And yet everybody knows, I also know that you're a mom of 2 beautiful girls, and you have a very supportive husband who I think luckily knows what it takes to do the singing path, because he's also a baritone and a very fine singer. That being said, no matter how well we plan our days, it can happen that we have 24,000 things happening at once, and the phone's ringing off its hook, and the wash has to be done, and we're late for our flight, and all that stuff, and the voice might tighten. So are you somebody who just stays in the present moment and is really dead honest with everything that's happening so that you can stay in deep flow, or do you watch yourself say, you know what, I need to focus on my voice performance, that top athlete thought, and we have to postpone complex conversations for other times?
Yeah, I struggle with this subject. It's probably my greatest challenge is taking care of myself and protecting my space. I'm not very good at that. I mean, and sometimes I think, well, maybe that's part of the artist I am, is that I try to go with the world and do it all and say no to nothing and just make it all work. And it often does, but usually at the cost of my, energy or health. And so I struggle with this, and I do tell myself, one thing I've often felt, but now I also remind myself to keep sanity and also priorities as they are, is that no matter how difficult things are, I mean, and this is proven true before children too, if I, had really bad jet lag, got sick on the flight, we have one day of rehearsal and then we're straight into shows, the music is always amazing. For me, even if my health isn't perfect, even if I didn't really sleep, and as a mom, oftentimes you don't sleep, but I've been amazed how if you are open to the moment, you still can do amazing things, even if you're not your top game, what you would consider your top game. Because I know a lot of singers say, oh, I have to get 9 hours of sleep, and I have to have a tuna sandwich, and I have to warm up for 2 hours, and then I did it. And I thought, sure, yeah, that's nice when it can all work, but also sometimes it doesn't happen, and it's still possible to give a great performance. So for me, having children has been a great experiment in that way, is I learn what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of, where my human limitations are. I've tried to get really good at doing efficient practice so I don't waste time. So I'm very aware in a practical sense of how organized I need to be, what pieces, what opera roles, what symphonic pieces need to come first, what I need to study on the plane, what I need to study at the gym, what I need to take to the piano, and So I don't practice as much as I would if I didn't have children. And yet that's okay. I can make it work. And when we were talking earlier about health and how the voice keeps you honest because it's a reflection of your health too. I thought of this experience just last week with Chicago Symphony because some friends wanted to go out and part of me thought, I really should sleep, but I also can see the heart medicine of having fun with some friends,
Yeah.
And so sometimes I have this debate of, do I live life and give myself some soul medicine, even if it costs me some hours of sleep, or do I try to protect my instrument? And, so that's a conversation piece for me, and I'm a people pleaser. So at the end of the day, I want to make sure everyone's taken care of and fed and everyone's happy, and then I'll figure out my music. So that's really a challenge, and I know you've given me great advice in the past about, we sort of talked about it, just organizing the day, saying from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., I'm going to be at the piano, or I'm going to be with my score or with myself, and carve it out. And of course there's body health too. I'm a big believer in physical exercise, and usually if I have extra time, that's what I do. That's what I give myself, and I'm always grateful I do, because it benefits everything, including my brain and my singing. And the time with my girls, obviously, is the most precious. So that's deeply feeding my soul, And sometimes when I'm home in between jobs, especially now that I don't travel with them everywhere like I used to, I struggle with that question where I'm with them and I want to just be with them, and I also know I need to practice a little. So my typical formula has been to really work mainly on the road. So when I'm on the road, I prep for all of the things coming up so that when I'm home, I can just be mom and wife and taking care of all that there is. And I think for the moment, that's what it needs to be, even though sometimes I think, oh gosh, I wish I could prepare a little bit more. But it's worked pretty well. It does come down to organization and also how much I take on. I used to take almost every contract because I didn't want to close any doors, but now I'm a little more selective about how many jobs I can take. Do you know?
Right, exactly. Stay tuned, Sasha. We're heading into one more station break. Thank you.
Okay.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Hi, this is New Age Grammy winner Paul Avgerinos. Thanks for listening to OMTimes Radio, and please support my peaceful healing music with a purchase at iTunes, Amazon, or wherever you shop for fine music. Just put my name into the search engine, Paul Avgerinos. A, V like Victor, G like George, E-R-I-N-O-S. You can also visit me at roundskymusic.com. Thanks for listening, and I'm wishing you the brightest of blessings.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
You are back at Voice Rising. I am Cara Johnstad, and we're in studio with the Grammy Award-winning mezzo-soprano, Miss Sasha Cooke. And Sasha, the New York Times has called you a luminous standout, and Opera News follows that with, it said, with equal parts of poise, radiance, and elegant directness, which I can just, say. It's all true. So, luminous and radiant. Do you think singing is a big part of presence, of luminosity, of radiance?
Absolutely. When it's done well, there's bad singing out there, but absolutely. And if you think about in a classical music, that's why the voice exists, really. So, I think of composers putting down notes on paper. Why do you want a clarinet here, a cello there, and why do you want a voice, right? Of course, there's the necessity of text or story sometimes, but I think a singer and the instrument of like you said, the one that's connected to our bloodstream is completely connected to radiance, and all of us, because we all are singers inside, and all of the instruments, of course, are told to sing with their instruments. So it's like the guiding light, the singer, it should be like a North Star.
Yeah, exactly. Every singer should be like a North Star. Sasha Cooke. That's what that's a goal for today. So what holistic practices do you do to keep yourself all shiny and radiant and in flow and connected to that light source? Besides, we've heard a lot, which I really appreciate. And I used to say this to my clients too, that there is no stage fear if you're connected, stage fright if you're connected to the music. Right? As soon as we start, if we're connecting to what the audience might think, then the fear might come in. But if we're really inside the music, the fear disappears, the fright disappears. But do you have any practices that you do to connect with that radiance and that flow?
Well, I think there's the, practical physical stuff. So, your eating and your health. So I think like you, I love Eastern medicine, and one of the naturopaths I've found over the years once said to me, the way you digest life is the way you the way you digest your food is the way you digest life. And that to me is very important in singing too. So I try to be open by not having anything going on digestively that's going to inhibit me from feeling happy and connected. So I try to be clean, eating wise on the road. And that's specific to me. Some people have, steel guts and can do and drink whatever they want. And that's just not been the case for me. I'm a little more sensitive. And, physical practice, of course, I think because we're breathing instruments, and the flexibility of our lungs and our stomachs and our whole apparatus is important. Physical exercise is big for me. Yoga, like you, I love everything yoga related, and because of travel, I've gotten to try so many great yoga places. So usually when I go for an opera job, particularly, I'll find where I'm going to be doing yoga for that period. And I think, like we talked about, again, gratitude. It's like if someone were to tell me what is the meaning of life or what's your purpose, and I go back and forth on this because sometimes I like to sort of have a mantra, which is one word, like what is my verb that I'm focusing on in this chapter of my life, and it changes. Sometimes it's different, but like right now it's to listen. So that's very apropos in singing. Like you said, we get into our heads and we start worrying, and it just becomes that self-conscious thing. But the minute we connect to whatever the players are playing or the pianist is playing or the singer next to us is singing, if we really, become in tune with what they're doing, you're right, we're in the moment, and all that stuff fades away. So I try to do that too, and before I go on stage, actually there was a role I did a long time ago in Verterre. It's called Charlotte, and she's just one of these totally radiant, beautiful women characters. And before I went on stage, I would practice like 10 smiles, and I would kind of hide in the curtain and just smile with my face and then smile with my face. And I know that like there's a yogic practice of like laughing, and how laughing, just even forcing laughter, creates positive feelings. And I lately have been into Tony Robbins' YouTubes, which talk a lot about physicality begetting your thoughts. So sometimes if you make like a hero pose, like put your fists on your hips or put your fists in the air and kind of make a goal post, that it actually creates positive feelings. So sometimes I do little physical postures to get amped up for being on stage, or, doing 50 jumping jacks just to get my blood moving. And I also do eye stretches. So this is sort of from Feldenkrais, because, there's this whole practice of moving your arms with your with your eyes, for instance. So I'll try to stretch my eye muscles to all points of the room as far as I can go. And usually it opens up my face and opens up my ability for expression. So I'm just a little bit more free, because sometimes we get a little bit clouded down, with our furrowed brows and in our little worlds of, internet and email and getting ready. So I kind of have to open up so I can see the upper balconies and really connect with everybody.
Beautifully said. Is there anything that you avoid as far as physical fitness is concerned? Because there are some things that I really avoid, like crunches, for example. You mentioned Tony Robbins, and I would love to give Tony Robbins a voice class, actually, because his voice is very, very
I know.
tight, for somebody with so much charisma, so much empowerment that he's giving the world. Is there anything that you would say as a singer, I don't do that because I'm worried that it might affect my voice? Yeah, heavy weightlifting.
Yeah, usually
I don't know.
Well, I sometimes I push it too far. Like I was just in a production of Hansel and Gretel, and I was trying, like you said, these intense core classes, because I thought, I'm going to try this core gym. And of course, on one of the days, I thought, this was too far, and I didn't go as extreme as the girl next to me. I don't like to run outside in the cold. I know there are singers that can do that, but I just don't like to take a chance and run in the cold. Or there have been a couple times recently where I've been in places with really bad pollution. So I just try to not work out outside, or exercise inside. Or even if it's beautiful, I'll turn on the air conditioning because I'm trying not to breathe in all of those things. And yeah, I think I've played around with how much socializing is good on the day of a show, and I go and I'm not sure about that one, because sometimes I think the best medicine before a performance or a big rehearsal is to see someone, because it's sort of kind of just is about living life, and not being overly precious about the show. And then usually I come to the show and I am refreshed, and I'm like, okay, here I am, happy to be with everybody. But sometimes if I go too far and do too much, then I regret it. So I'm still kind of figuring that out. I mean, I don't know about you, but it is sort of a work in progress,
Always.
It's changing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that I was talking about. It's like the singer's vow. We say yes 24/7. For me, at least, that's my life path. I mean, I said yes, and that means that it's always a beautiful journey of balance, harmony. How far can I go? And it changes, right? It might be that somebody right before a show is fantastic, and you feel open and free and wonderful, and it might mean that that person meets you and it's just very full of heaviness and you chose the wrong person for the wrong day, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Or the same with restaurants, right? That you get the wrong food on the day of a performance. You're like, oh, okay, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
That's where my famous banana stories come in. I always have somewhere hiding a banana in my dressing room, if possible, for those days when you can't seem to find anything, but you need that energy, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right? The famous banana.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I don't do apples. I don't do apples before a performance.
I see.
Yeah. So what's the one thing about voice that you would love everyone to understand and or experience? If somebody had no idea what it's like to open that full voice channel, I mean, not just to speak, which is already a big step for many people, but to, I'm sure you have many octaves, to really be centered and aligned in that vibrational heart medicine that you were talking about, soul medicine, that vibrational force. What is the one thing that you would love people to experience or understand about the voice?
Well, it sounds sort of silly, but I think most people don't understand how complex it is. I think a lot of people think you wake up with the voice, and I've often heard that comment after shows. My goodness, how lucky you are to just have this voice come out of you. And sometimes I think, well, it's taken a lot of time to get it on the right path, and it's a constant challenge, with my changing self and my changing breath and my changing voice. I'm hormonally changing, a woman changing, aging. So I think I wish people understood that. I mean, you of course do, but a lot of people I think don't understand. What do you go to school for? Or what do you do in college? It's like, well, it's a lot of time, years trying to figure out your body and find optimal resonance and freedom. And a yogic friend of mine says that he's in his 60s, and he says as he ages, he finds that he's unlearning things. He's letting go, things. Right. That has been his process in life. And I think sort of singing is that too, that we actually start out kind of tight. Like if you go to see college students or high school students, we're sort of holding ourselves in, and we're kind of scared to emote, scared to move our body. And then slowly over time, we let go. We move our limbs, we move our face, we move around, we feel free, and then that allows more freedom then in our body, and we let go of our back and our ribs and our stomach, and we feel free, and we can bounce our knees. So, like, becoming a singer is so much about starting to find your space, own your space, and let go, That's sort of a long answer.
No, it's a perfect answer. I often talk about also the memory that we do have, and you as a mother of small kids know this, the memory that we do have of being one with our voice and being one with our movement, and our movement is actually guided by the voice. And it seems like we tend to take a very, very long journey and then circle back to exactly what you're saying, the undoing of, or the unraveling of conditionings, belief systems, that we become freer the older we get, and through that the voice also is freed and is there to do what it's meant to do best. Right?
I mean, I wish all people could experience that. You sort of said that, I wish all people could experience that, but it's not a path for everybody. But when I think in a way, when we're watching a singer, we're sort of living it inside of ourselves, we're imagining what it's like to share sound in that same way. And of course, when we're in the room making sound with people, the space and the people are changing the sound vibrationally. So we are vibrating with them, which is so amazing. So I think that's why people gravitate towards singing.
It's amazing simply to think, and this is fact, that the breath that Bernstein or Kafka or Goethe or Rilke or Mozart, what they were breathing in and out, we are also still breathing in and out. I mean, that one just kind of blows my mind, right? That we are not only connected in the same room, we are connected throughout all the generations to our ancestors.
Yeah.
We are just long beautiful, storylines. So if there's
Amazing.
one message that you have for the world, that's a big one. But if there's one message that you would like, we're at the end of 2018. This interview might be played many times, so we're going into 2019. What is the message of the word that you would like to give our world in this present moment in time? You don't have to commit yourself for the next 100 years. What would you like to see the world?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Oh, gosh, that's tough. That's really tough to find one. Well, I just did this opera, which actually, it's funny you mentioned the Grammy because it's nominated for a Grammy about Steve Jobs.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. And I played the wife of Steve Jobs, Lorraine Jobs, and the line that she has in the final part of the opera is a really beautiful aria, and the title of it is Look Up. And the whole...
Yeah. I lost you. Oh, no. All right. Okay, thank you so much. Everybody, this was a wonderful talk and conversation that we had with Sasha Cooke, the Grammy Award-winning mezzo-soprano, and we were just about to hear, and I'm going to invite Sasha back onto the show soon so we can follow up on that, but hear her message for the world. I want you to know that if you want any info on Sasha, it's sashacooke.instantcore.com, SASHACOOKE.INSTANTEN core.com. I thank you so much for being with me today at Voice Rising and with the wonderful Sasha Cooke. See you very soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks.